Hi everyone. In this module, we are going to learn about ECRF designing and edit check programming. Before going detail, let us understand what is a CRF. A CRF is a case report form which is designed to collect the patient data in a clinical trial. Its development represents a significant part of the clinical trial and can affect the study success. As per ICH, the definition for CRF is a printed, optical, or electronic document designed to record all of the protocol required information to be reported to the sponsor on each trial subject. Purpose of a CRF. Designing a CRF is crucial in clinical trial because all the required data points should be collected in a sequential pattern in a required format. So that is always important in assessing the safety and efficacy of the medicinal product or a device accurately. So it should be study protocol driven, robust in content, and should support the study specific data as well. So CRF design should be standardized to address the need of all users such as investigators or nothing but the doctors who is going to analyze the patient's data against the requirement of the protocol, site coordinators, the site team members who are going to enter the data into the system, study monitors. Other than that, study data entry personnel also would be there at site level, medical coders, statistician, etc. CRF should be designed for optimal collection of data in accordance with the study protocol compliance, as well as the regulatory requirements are more important and shall enable the researcher test the hypothesis or answer the trial related questions. So always the case report form should be compatible with the protocol and all the data points which are required for analysis should be available in the case report form. So what are the different types of CRF? So one is the paper CRF and the electronic CRF. The traditional pattern is in the earlier days they used to use in the paper format. So nowadays eCRF is more convenient and even the monitors can verify the data on the real-time basis as well. Paper CRF. It is the traditional way of data capture and better suited if the studies are small or complex in design. During each patient visit, the site team will document the details of the task or procedures completed and any other pertinent study research information in a source document. Source documents are the original records of patient information. Common source documents includes the medical prescriptions, patient medical records or medical charts, phone encounters or notes, lab and diagnostic test results, patient diaries, and any specific research worksheet used to document key research data elements. The site staff then transcribes the information from relevant source documents to paper CRFs. Sometimes the task of transcribing the data from paper to a database software may be carried out by a separate team. This team may also be responsible for the data to be entered correctly because always the paper CRF where the data is captured in the paper format. Then for analysis that has to be moved from paper to a software. So there is a special dedicated team who are going to enter those data into the system. However, this method of collecting research data with paper form is not only prone to mistakes with handwritten interpretation but may also make the task of validating data extremely time consuming and tedious, and as well as to identify any discrepancies is also it will take so much of time. Also paper CRFs are generally stored in vaults, making it less secure. Using paper CRF also increase the cost effectively since there are too many patients are involved in a study, then the cost is also so high. And it involves logistic to transfer the physical documents across different study sites to a central location. So many studies involve multiple sites across different parts of the world and hence require the patient information in their respective local language as well. Hence, these forms have to be printed in the local language and requires translation as well as back translation to English. So that is the reason paper CRF is not widely used nowadays. So currently, everyone prefer for electronic case report form. ECRF is nothing but an electronic case report form, which is a digital questionnaire represented by a user interface of a computer interface that is used to collect data about a clinical study and research participants. So what they will do? It allows online entry of patient data by investigators or a separate dedicated team who is going to enter such data into the system, which ensures simplicity of data collection. So you have a control on your system, and you also can trace to ensure that data's integrity as well as accuracy. So other than that, so at what time the site team member has entered the data into the system is also available, and as well as study monitors or the site specific monitors also can review the data remotely. So these data are usually stored in cloud-based storage such as electronic data capture system, which is also called as EDC systems. As well as data validation can be done, and any error can be captured real time also. Some common systems which are available includes REEF, OpenClinic as an open source system, Inform, Oracle RDC, etc. So in the current global scenario, ECRFs are preferred over paper CRF as they are less time consuming and also encourage the sponsor and other pharmaceutical company to carry out large multicentric studies at the same time due to ease of administration. ECRF under EDC system requires extensive user training as it may include multiple integrated software system validation before implementing it. So let us see a sample paper CRF and an ECRF forms here. So here you can see the sample paper CRF which shows a particular question where they will answer like tick mark or the user can write on the paper. So in case of ECRF, so it is simplified and directly they can enter the information. There is no other further work is required to transcribe paper data into an electronic database system. So here the data is directly captured into the EDC system, but again the monitors who is going to review the data has to acknowledge in the ECRF as well as the paper CRF. So that job is going to be the same. So let us see now what are all the advantages of ECRF. So first advantage is that less space is required. But since data is electronically stored, it requires less physical storage unlike paper CRF. Paper CRFs are usually stored in vaults and requires a physical storage. Legibility of data. Since data is not manually written, it is easy to read and understand, unlike in paper CRF where handwritten notes may not be readable, hence result in errors. Less paper, hence more economical. Data stored in real time with ECRF. Paper CRF involves cost for printing the form. Faster transmission of data, which is actually required in the industry. Once data is entered, it can be accessed and viewed by all stakeholders at any point of time. With paper CRF, the form has to be sent back and forth by mail, which again consumes time. If there are any clarifications are required, so we have to get an update from the site team, then the same will be transcribed into the database for further analysis. Real-time automated edit checks. So ECRF allows logical checks to highlight discrepancies to site staff during data entry, whereas paper CRF errors discovered at a later point of time may prove difficult to correct. Real-time automated edit checks, I will give some examples like if there are any range specific checks. So when the site team is going to enter a data, if the value doesn't fit within the specific range, immediately system will throw an error that the data which is entered is not within the limit as per the logic which is mentioned in the system. So they can see whether they have entered an incorrect data or if it is actually the data is as it is, then they can provide a confirmation that data collected is as it is as per the source. So the monitors, whenever they visit the site, they can cross-check it immediately. Less queries from data management. Queries can be instantly with reduced turnaround times for data clarification because real time the data is available. Even the data management team can review and they can raise the queries wherever it is applicable. Monitoring can be planned and prepared. So, based upon the subjects which are enrolled in the study, monitors can plan their upcoming visits to the particular sites because ADC system helps them how many subjects are enrolled, how many are randomized. So, based upon the available information from the established reports, they can schedule their monitoring visits. So facilitate analysis. Unlike in paper CRF, where consolidated data is obtained after a long time consuming process, but in case of eCRF, it is readily available and hence facilitates the faster analysis. Data security. Access to data is limited to only authorized persons. All entries and modifications are tracked, thereby ensuring the data security because each and every users will have their unique user ID. Whenever a data is updated, it is tracked against the user ID and all tracking related informations are available in the ADC platform. So now let us see what are the main disadvantages of eCRF. Requires fast internet connection because speed of the internet connection at sites may affect the data transfer. Frequent network issues may happen, hamper your data transfer. Technology must be available at site. Site staff should be aware about the technology because currently every sponsor uses, the system uses specifically. In some cases, if the sites involved are at remote location, it is not necessary they may have an advanced technology. Different systems may be used because every sponsors or every project may require specific software. So there could be multiple softwares also involved and may be tedious to operate. For example, data entry could be on one software. Again, IP management or central randomization could be in some other software. So the site team should be aware about how to utilize multiple software for a single project. Significantly, it will have high cost because certain projects may require high-end software which may be significantly increasing cost. High training cost. So you know that in the industry, people may leave one organization and switch over to then another organization. There would be multiple team would be involved in the project. So again, the training is also required for every team member who is assigned as a task to enter into the ADC system. So ADC specific site training is required on the software used and site staff need to encourage to submit data immediately following the participant visits or as per the defined timelines which is mentioned in the guidelines. So because this can avoid a backdated data entry. So real time you can also understand how much of data is available on the system. Sometimes the system may not be user friendly when complex studies are involved as well. So what are all the requirements before designing a CRF? Before a CRF is designed, a thorough training on the protocol must be done. This we discussed in the startup phase activity as well. And all relevant documents pertaining to the protocol must be obtained from the sponsor. Then data management team will start preparing the clinical data specification sheet based on which the ECRF will be designed by the dedicated team. CDSS is a requirement sheet which contains all the data points identified for the preparation of ECRF. This helps the programmer not to miss any important data which affects the study efficacy. It contains different sections with generic rules and limitations for data capture. It also helps ECRF designer to understand the data type of the input. If there is any limitation to the length of the data, the response expected from the question on which all the events the same CRF should repeat. When this document is shared with the biostatistician, the listed data points will be reviewed by them to check whether the collected data points meets their expectation in terms of future analysis, if it is compliant with the SAS requirement, if any further data has to be captured, that they will identify whether there is any data is missing from the designed ECRF document. The picture below shows an example of CDSS for demographics and anthropometry page. Here you can see the variable name which is used for the ECRF designing purpose, and similarly the same can be used for edit check programming as well. So then the column B shows the question text or the label which will appear on the screen, and then data type, whether the concerned data is an integer or whether it will have a decimal points or it's only going to be as a string format, that is it is a character. Then variable type, which shows that whether it is numeric or character or what it is. Format shows that the length of the character. In case of it is a decimal data point, then how many decimal points are required. Then column F, which represents the unit of the particular data item which has to be collected. Then response codes are nothing but the drop down option or the selection options. Then accepted ranges, for example, if we have some validations with limit to the, here it shows the age for the concerned data. Here the age should be between 12 to 40 years. So if the patient is less than 12 years or greater than 40 years, system will populate an error. And then whether this is applicable for which particular visit, whether it is visit 1, randomization, 3, 4, 5, etc. So what are all the things that needs to be considered while designing an ECRF page? So the CDSS, sometimes simply referred as data requirement sheets, which serves as a data repository for the programmer to map the variable for creation of the CRF. So ECRF should be implemented keeping the end user, the one who is going to enter the data into the CRF, in mind with zero minimal errors. Remember to use consistent formats, font style and font sizes throughout the ECRF. And it should be clear and concise questions, even the prompts and instructions too. So wherever a radio button or a checkbox is required, we can use it. So provide bold and at least instructions. For example, if you want to give some instructions how to complete a particular page, sometimes can be use the italic or the bold fonts. Then there should be a minimized free text responses. Position only specified density of questions on each page. There should not be too much of questions in a single page. So please have a neat and clean designing while doing this particular process. Avoid using check all that apply, as it forces assumptions about the clinical data. Specify the unit of measurement wherever possible, because if you mention the unit, the person who is going to enter the data will not have any confusion. So based upon the unit whichever is mentioned, they can capture the data in same unit. Avoid repetitive data across the form. If certain data can be derived using the previously captured information, for example, age can be calculated using the date of birth. Sometimes date of birth may be captured in the same page or it can be captured in the some other page also. And another example is that body mass index can be calculated using the height and weight of the subject. So to avoid multiple entries, the height and weight can be used to calculate the body mass index, and same can be defined in the system. If input answers are coded, consistency in codes should be maintained across all the pages. For example, if yes is coded as 1 and no is coded as 2, then the codes assigned in this order, the same order should be practiced throughout all the other CRFs. Nowhere in any CRFs 1 should be coded for no and 2 should be coded for yes. Provide instructions to indicate the number of decimal places to be recorded. Use standard date format throughout the ECRF to avoid a confusion for the site team while performing the entry. Use pre-coded answer sets such as yes, no, male, female, method of administration of medicine, and severity of AE as mild, moderate, or severe. Wherever it is possible, give the options instead of having an open text box. Do not split modules or sections, a set of one or more related groups of questions that pertain to a single clinical study visit. Like, for example, AE section should not be split and laid across the pages such that the information related to a single AE will have to be collected from different pages. Use instructions including cross-references to other ECRF where data has to be entered. For example, during a follow-up visit, the investigator is supposed to record any AE was recorded. If occurred, then the details of AE questions to be completed. So, wherever it is possible, having an option of yes or no, so that if S is selected, then you can have an option or a link where this particular page will take them to the AE corresponding page. A is nothing but an adverse event. So, wherever is possible, we can give a link or we can provide some other related information in the similar page itself. Ways to design an ECRF. So ECRFs can be designed in any of the EDC platforms. Examples are Open Clinica, Rail, etc. So certain formats will have form designers and they have their own form templates as well. Creating form using Form Designer. Form Designer is a tool built in the CDMS and readily available to use. Designing forms is very easy using Form Designer as you can create a form right in the user interface using the drag and drop method. It is easy for the user to simply add a form or an item or a text box as you can simply click on the buttons and you can visualize the look. There is a preview option which allows the user to have a look at the form. But again, Form Designer will have its own restrictions. The complex designs cannot be created using the Form Designer. Under any EDC platform, there is a study build system where you can design and set up your study. Once a new study is added under your EDC platform, the data fields pertaining to the study is entered. For example, which will have your study ID, study name, description of the study, type of the study, expected number of participants, etc. So which will be created in the EDC where user has the access as administrator. Once the study is created, with the user role as data manager, the forms can be designed. Different EDC platforms have different methods of creating the study. The documentation section of the software would provide detailed guidance on how to create a study and subsequently add visits and forms under the same. Once you enter into the design view, you can see an option to add your visit or event or add your form. Once you enter into the design view, you will see an option to add an event or add a form. Once the form is created and named, click on the design to use the form designer to add further data items as per your requirement. Once you click on the design button, the form designer window opens and you can edit the name of the form. Next, you can enter the question or the prompt inside the text box and click on add question. So once you click on that question, a screen appears where the data type needs to be selected and whether you require a drop down or you require a radio button, those specifications also can be identified. For the same. Once the data type is selected, you will have to name the data variable under which the value is captured. And similarly, you can identify whether this particular field is a mandatory field or not. And you can set a conditional value also. Based upon one data item value, the other question can populate or may not populate. So next, you can add the data values as per the CTSS and click on the Save Draft option and then you can preview it. So if you're satisfied, then you can save and you can release it to your test environment. If not, you can again modify and complete your process. But again, I already stated that there are limitations in form designers. So form designer does not support all the functionality to implement a complex checks. So you cannot use cross-logic forms in form designers or you cannot update whatever is required as per the page requirements. So sometimes you have to use a programming part to design the CRF as well. So you can add edit checks in form designers, But hard edit checks must be defined in the form template or in the validation environment of the particular edit checks programming section. Form Designer does not allow the functionality for cascading selects. Cascading select questions or set of questions whose options depend on the response to a previous question, which I already mentioned that conditional values as well. Creating form using programming. A form can be created by programming also. Sometimes it is necessary to design using programming where there are more logic or specific features are in. That means if a study involves more complicated logic, it is preferable to use the approach in the EDC system. Each EDC platform has its own programming languages, advantages as well as limitations. Complex logical checks can be implemented through hardcore programming. One of the most important provision is the ability of using cascading selects where if you can select an option based on the previous entry for the questions. So for example, based on what state is selected, the next option for the sub-question city will appear. But again, there are limitations too. Programming skills are needed to implement complex validation during ECRF designing. Due to the same, it may take a longer time to design the form. But you can preview the form only once the entire form is programmed. Otherwise, you can't preview how it is designed. What you should do after ECRF design. Once the ECRF designing is completed, it is uploaded in the test environment in a draft version stage. Simultaneously, a draft version of annotated document is also prepared and circulated among the relevant stakeholders. And once they review it, if there are any review comments are there, same can be implemented. So if any modifications are needed, the same would be updated in the data specification sheet and your annotated CRF document as well. According to these documents, the changes will be implemented by the programmer in the design of the ECRF. The amended ECRF design again will be uploaded into the test environment for screen UAT. If there are no comments, then the same will be finalized. If there are any comments, the comments will be updated again in the CDSS and annotated document. The programmer then will modify the ECRF design and implement the changes and will be sent again for review. This cycle will be appearing until unless the section is finalized. Then QC will be performed at this stage as well. If any changes are recommended by the QC team, again the documents CDSS and annotated will be updated and the changes will be incorporated in the design and again the same will be shared for review. Once ECRF design has been approved, then the data management team will start preparing the edit check specification document. Post completion or simultaneously also, the programmer will initiate the programming part for the edit check and they are identified with the unique rule ID. ECRF designing process here. It starts and obtain the protocol from sponsor. CDSS will be prepared, signing the ECRF. Then simultaneously annotated CRF is also prepared. Once ECRF review is completed, then it will be uploaded into the test environment. If changes are suggested, then again CDSS will be updated, ECRF will be modified, then updated, annotated will goes for the review and again until unless the review is approved, it will be released into the test environment. If not, the cycle will be continuously processing. So once it is uploaded in the test environment, QC part will come into picture. If again QC changes are there, then CDSS will be updated, ECRF design will be modified, then again annotated will be updated, review will be processed once it is approved and will be released into the test environment. QC release is also done for the same. Now we will moving into the edit check programming part. Once ECRF designing has been approved, by the reviewers. The edit check specification document will be prepared by the data management team. This document contains all the rules based on which programming will be done to raise any discrepancies if the data entered is not valid. The rules will be based on the criteria defined in the protocol and logical consistency of data. So every rule will has its own unique ID. It means that every edit check will have its unique rule ID, which will be specified in the document as well. The edit check programming will highlight the erroneous data and throw a discrepancy note upon input and allow the operator to take corrective measures immediately. Due to the edit check programming, majority of the data cleaning activities will take place during the completion of the ECRF page itself, which will reduce the time and effort required by the data management personnel during the contact phase. Instant query resolution reduces the time spent on obtaining the clarification from the site or investigator, and hence clean data is obtained much quickly and resulting in timely database lock as well as faster regulatory submission, and which helps in the subsequent faster approval as well. What are the methods of edit check programming? Edit check rules can be implemented either manually through programming in the form template or by using a built rule designers. So rule designers offer an interface to test the rules so that simultaneously of the rules created can be instantaneously observed. Based on the outcome, it can be determined if any further changes are required. But programming again, it is a little bit complex, whether which form to be used, what is the logic, if there are multiple pages are used, that has to be cross-checked and then will be released into the test environment. Again, same will be tested. If there are any errors, again the programming needs to be updated. Edit checks with the help of rule designer. So with built-in rule designer, under design option, if you click on the settings symbol, you will get two options to add checks. One is the skip logic and other is a validation criteria. So skip logic is a feature that changes what question or pages a respondent sees next based on how they answer the current question. If you want to add skip logic, click on the tab skip logic and click and add a condition. So you have to put some condition to utilize this type of checks. Once you click on add a condition, you get the option to select question from the list, which lists out the fields that we have created. The question will be displayed only if the mentioned condition is true. So the below figure shows that the field date of visit will appear only if age at the screening is greater than 18. You can also add manual validation logic by clicking on the tab manually. Enter your validation logic in XLS form code where you have to add the constraint and corresponding messages too. So this is just an example of one of the software. Every software will have its own process or its own programming language where the same can be implemented. If the skip logic is added manually, you can enter the programming code for the data variable with the condition inside the text box. You can program the edit checks directly in the system by programming the edit checks as per the syntax. Every software will have its own programming language, its own syntax. As per the syntax. The points that you should note post edit check programming. Once the edit check programming is completed, the ECRF is again tested in the test environment in the CTMS. Validation of these rules is performed by a team to test the data entry is as per the data validation guideline. So this guideline we have discussed a little earlier also. So what this guideline states and what is the purpose of this guideline as well. Any issues encountered during validation will be captured under the database testing error log. These issues will be checked by the program and again the same will be reprogrammed for correct execution and revalidation. Modifications to any of the ECRF will require amendment to the respective documents or the checks where it is implemented. So the same will be repeated until accepted by all the reviewers. Once all the checks are validated and executed correctly, a final QC will be done for the same. Once the QC is perfect, then same will be released. If not, again, the cycle will be continued. That is, again, the database testing error log or the QC issue log will be completed and same will be sent for the programmer for correction and execution of the same. Post that, again the QC team will revalidate the same. Then only a QC finalization will be completed. Once these processes are completed, final version of the ECRF and the edit checks will be uploaded in the live database and released to production has to be signed off for this. So again, upload ECRF in the test environment, prepare your edit check specification document, the checks will be programmed, UAT will be done. If it is valid, QC will be performed. If the data is not valid, changes are required, then edit check specification document needs to be updated. Capture issues and database testing error log, reprogram the edit checks. So the cycle will be completed until unless we get the proper validated document. Once it is validated, then QC validation will be done. Once everything is fine, same will be finalized. ECRF with programmed edit checks will be released to the system. Before that, an UIT sign-off process will be completed. Annotated ECRF should be signed by the relevant stakeholders. Sponsor should sign the sponsor CRF approval form. Then the CRF will be available in the live database. So release to production form should be signed by the relevant stakeholder. There is a possibility that a change is required to the ECRF post the study has been initiated, either due to an amendment in the protocol or any other reason cited by the sponsor. In such scenario, a justification will be provided by the DM team to make necessary changes in a separate document. Any changes required to the ECRF, again a summary of changes for the ECRF should be completed. If there are any changes in the edited specification, the same document needs to be updated and the rule which needs to be modified also has to be identified. Accordingly, the programmer will modify the existing validation to a required validation scenarios and the same will be tested and then will be released into the live environment. Again, QC will be performed for the same. Amendments to a live database will be controlled through post-production change request process, which we discussed in the conduct phase as well. The same will be documented, approved through an ECRF approval form or edit check approval form along with the release to production. Thank you.